Welcome to 5 Questions. I'm Jeff Blyle. Today it's 5 questions on artificial intelligence with Brian D'Alessandro. Brian is the head of data science at ZocDoc, an online doctor marketplace and booking tool, and an adjunct professor of data science at the NYU Stern School of Business. Previously, Brian was vice president of data science at the online advertising agency Distillery. Hi, Brian. Thanks for joining us here on 5 Questions.
Thanks, Jeff. How are you today?
Good. So, a real basic question to start. How do you define artificial intelligence?
I'm a very flexible person when it comes to the definition of AI. And truthfully, I tend to tailor it how I describe it to the audience. I think AI, this is similar to machine learning and big data. It's one of those things where it works very well as a marketing term, but once you try to get technical, you have to it's better to be very specific. So if you're talking to a technical audience, or if I'm talking to a technical audience, I might refer to the actual subcategory of techniques that are being used, whether it's reinforcement learning, neural nets, NLP, GANs, and things like that. So again, with a technical audience, I'm probably not even going to use AI. I will prefer to have the subcategory, which generally is defined by specific techniques and has a very explicit definition. Now, when I'm speaking with business folks, marketing folks, I realize it's oftentimes easier to just say AI. So I typically define it with them as a subcategory of machine learning that is able to attack certain types of problems in specific ways that make them incredibly effective.
Well, we like to ask about specific use cases for AI in business. Can you talk specifically about your experience and ZocDoc's experience in the field of healthcare?
Yeah. So for the record, we don't position ourselves as an AI company. And I think that's an important distinction. We're a very patient-focused healthcare company that tries to make the process of finding a doctor and book an appointment much easier. And also, we operate a two-sided marketplace where we have, doctors on one side as a set of customers, and we have patients as the other. So we're a very product-driven company, and we try to design products that help both sides of the equation, and specifically to facilitate the booking experience. So to start, anything that we might do that's part of a machine learning or AI strategy, we'll start there, right? We think about the product, and we try to think about how will AI actually enable these services or make these services better. So one specific case that we've recently put out was for insurance card capture. So the core product the product feature is designed to make the process of understanding your insurance card and understanding your insurance eligibility for a particular appointment much better. And insurance is notoriously difficult to work with. I've learned a lot about the insurance industry and just general insurance plan organization throughout this process. But the feature that we have is a patient either before they even start looking for a doctor on our platform, they can take a photo of their insurance card, and we use several deep learning techniques to classify the insurance plan and carrier, so like Aetna PPO as an example. And we also identify key pieces of text from the card, such as your member ID, and we extract that using it's OCR technology, but it's OCR that's purely based off of deep learning. And we take that information and we're actually able to pull, or there's third-party APIs, and this part is not driven by AI, but there's third-party APIs that if we have all that information, we can actually check your insurance eligibility. So before you even book an appointment, we can give you a pretty good guarantee that you're going to be covered, which through our consumer research, we found is a huge, huge point of anxiety for our patients.
Thinking about it from business terms, what role do you think AI should play in an organization's business strategy, and how could it be integrated into a strategy?
I'm going to try to simplify and first create two categories. One is, are you an AI company, as in, are you trying to deliver AI tools or AI as a service? Mm-hmm. That's a specific case where I think it's pretty obvious that you need to have best-in-class AI, both, particularly in terms of people to succeed. But I would say most companies are not that. So I want to talk about the latter, which is you're a product or services driven company. And AI is a new, quite popular, catchy term, and you want to try to think about how this is going to help you. And certainly ZocDoc fits into that category. I think businesses need to not think about AI first. They need to go back to their product and service strategy and say, how am I going, like, what are the problems that I'm trying to solve for my customers? And then determine if AI is a particular class of techniques or tools that can help them solve that problem. There's a famous saying, like a hammer in search of a nail. And I think it's the wrong strategy for companies to say, I want to do AI. Let me go find a problem to solve with it. I think it's better to say, I have a problem to solve, and this is a particular problem that's well suited for it as an AI application. If you start that way, I believe you're going to be much more successful. You're going to probably be able to do it faster and cheaper, as well as have more impact.
In a case where a company's made that identification, what do you think a company needs to do to prepare? What resources, what kind of infrastructure does a company need?
I've discovered that a company doesn't need much these days. They don't need much in terms of the AI side, but I think what's often not made obvious or discussed a lot, but something I've learned over and over again is that the underlying data, the data infrastructure, is most likely what is going to differentiate your AI, and that is for several reasons. So before thinking about your AI infrastructure and your AI talent, you need to think about your data, right? Do you have the right data? Are you extracting it in a way that is useful for an AI application and things like that? And there's sort of a catch-22 there, though, where if you're literally starting from scratch, like let's say you have some production data and a few engineers, you might not know how to audit your data for an AI application without having AI talent there. So you need to start with someone who maybe a consultant or kind of your first data scientist or research scientist to, someone hopefully who's senior enough who can understand how to design a system from scratch. So again, first things first, get your data in place. And, I've seen many occasions where software engineers have complex data systems that are designed to operate the website, very operational, but not designed to power a learning algorithm or even analytics. So first, put your data in place. And earlier I said that your data is probably going to be your differentiating factor. And that is because unless you're Google or Facebook and you're able to hire the literal best AI talent, you're going to have to make do with a very competitive market. And most commercial AI applications, I think, can be solved with pretty, at this point, commodified tools. There's software like Keras, TensorFlow, PyTorch, and these are very well written, very well abstracted pieces of software that can let someone with very little AI experience train their first model in a very short time. So the learning curve is very short at this stage. There's also the infrastructure, the actual AI infrastructure. Essentially what you need is a GPU server. And you could certainly try to build one yourself, or you can sign up for Amazon Web Services, or I think Microsoft and Google have it as well. ZocDoc is AWS, so I can speak more specifically about that. But whatever your cloud-based computing service is, they offer essentially AI instances or like server instances designed for AI. So again, with AWS, they call it a P2 instance. It has GPUs. You can have it pre-installed with all of your AI software, which is usually a Python environment. And literally within a few hours, you can say, you get on your way to work that morning, you could say, I want to do AI today. And then by lunch, you can essentially be training your model, provided all your data is, organized and the code is there. And, on the coding front, there are plenty of example pieces of code or scripts out there that essentially are prepackaged neural nets with prepackaged code that you can just start training on your data right away. So the data infrastructure could take a very long time. It needs to be very thoughtful. And then the actual AI code and AI infrastructure can be done in a day. You might only be solving commodity problems, if you did it that quickly, but a lot of problems are much simpler than people might tend to make them out to be. And kind of standard techniques, whether it's like convolutional neural nets or recurrent neural nets, are pretty well suited for them.
And There always has been, and there still is a lot of hype out there about AI. What do you think somebody who needs a business leader or somebody who needs to make business decisions can do to separate the hype from the reality?
So I think the first thing they can do is talk to a data scientist, whether it's their own in-house data scientists or a consultant or a friend or whomever is in their network. And so far, everything I've said so far, I hope can, if heeded, can downplay the hype. Practically speaking, I think business leaders need to first really be thoughtful about whether they need AI. I know I've been a data scientist for long enough now that I remember I've seen it many a times where a company says, I should hire a data scientist. Data science is very important, but they hire them and they don't necessarily put in place the necessary investments around data infrastructure and career development to actually make data scientists that useful. And I think the same risk exists with AI. So very first starting point is make sure that you need AI. And, sometimes a company can get away with just analytics, right? They don't actually need AI. And having a kind of a influential person who, again, either a consultant or like your first data scientist who can help determine what problems in the business's problems that really could benefit from an AI application, and then start from there. And then go back to what I said earlier: is your differentiating factor is probably your data and not the AI. And as an example, in the ZocDoc case, I was talking about this insurance card capture. If you got any group of smart people in a room who were trained, they could come up with something just as good from an AI. Like they could come up with a neural net just as good. But what makes ZocDoc quite unique and what differentiates us is the fact that we had a year's worth of insurance card captured, like insurance cards where patients had labeled them, right? So we had an amazing labeled data set where patients for a year had been using this feature, telling us themselves what their carrier and plan and member IDs were. So naturally, with a data set like that, the sort of the AI part of it becomes pretty obvious.
Yeah, thanks, Brian. If our listeners want to find out more about ZocDoc, where can they go?
Very easy, ZocDoc.com. It's a marketplace for finding a doctor and booking online. Some people call it the open table of healthcare.
Well, Brian D'Alessandro, thank you very much for joining us and for answering 5 questions on artificial intelligence.
Thank you very much for having me.